Secondly, Honorable Speaker, there is no contradiction whatsoever in what I believed in then and what I believe in now. I simply believe that I've been called to perform a national duty. And as a patriotic Kenyan, I have responded positively to the call, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, I will be open to scrutiny.
So, Honorable Wandayi, that's exactly what you wanted to hear, because the Kenyan public wanted to hear and have that assurance.
Thank you very much.
So I think you've explained it well.
Thank you very much.
It was not to put you on the defense. It was just for the country to understand the shift.
Secondly,
the next question.
The issue of fuel prices is a very emotive matter, extremely emotive. But I will come to it perhaps later. For now, let me just say this, that the road maintenance levy is one of the levies and taxes that constitute the ultimate pump price of fuel. Unfortunately, it doesn't fall within the remit of my ministry if I get approved. The road maintenance levy is a levy which is proposed by the Ministry of Transport and Roads. And it goes through the normal process of parliamentary approval, I believe. Thank you.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. CS nominee, you have said that nothing changes in the things you believe in. And I want to believe if nothing changes, your publicly known stand on the fight against corruption will continue being so even when you join the ministry, if you are approved. And in view of that, you do know the problems that pervade the power sector, especially in regards to the cost of generation of power and what is offloaded to the Kenya Power and Lighting Company. That independent power producers in this country, over the years, since the early 60s and 70s, to date, continue to sell very expensive power to KPLC, while that power that we generate from KenGen, including the green power in Olkaria and Marsabit Wind Power, the solar farms in northern Kenya, are much cheaper. Will Kenyans, or can Kenyans trust you that when you take office, should you be approved, that you will literally do what they call biting the bullet and fight the power cartels in power generation and sale with the PPA agreements that are there, to make sure that Kenyans eventually can enjoy lower costs of power? Because there is power that is cheaper, and it's there. But we are still on thermal energy, when we have cheaper geothermal energy, we have cheaper wind energy, we have cheaper solar energy. Can we get that assurance from you that you can bite the bullet, relook at many of those contracts, of course within the law, that were procured corruptly to the great detriment of the people of Kenya?
You hold. We'll take another one. Janet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to put to the nominee that, Mr. Speaker, the nominee is somebody known to me very well, having been his whip for now 2-3 years in Parliament. And there is somebody who believes, the way I know him, he stands with on what he believes. But having said that, I want to tell him that working in Parliament, the way we have worked in Parliament together as a whip and a minority leader, and working in the executive are two different things, two different ball games completely. Having said that, I want to ask him that there are issues that are of energy in nature that require immediate attention. For example, issues of electrification. You know very well, nominee, that there are places, you know and I know, who have not seen electricity since God created Kenya. They are still in darkness. You know very well that those places have suffered quite some time, and they need urgent help, attention, But promises have been given year in, year out by people who have taken up jobs like the way you're taking. So what Marshall Plan or what measures are you thinking of to help in the next 3 years those areas that have not seen light, not the light of God, but the light of human being, who have not seen it? What are you planning? Secondly, that is last mile. My final question is, this country, the way it is now, and your predecessor, the nominee that was holding your docket, has come here to be vetted on for another docket. He has said that the networks and the systems of the electricity has gone down because of non-repair or something like that for many years. So it requires a lot of money to be upgraded. And I asked him about these shutdowns that happen in the country that affect airports, that affects even hospitals sometimes. I am praying that it does not happen when you are the minister, if you are approved. But what are you thinking? What are you planning to do about that matter? Because Kenyans are sick and tired of missing electricity without any notice. Thank you very much.
You can answer those.
Yes, Honorable Speaker. Let me start with the Honorable Majority Leader's question about corruption within the energy sector and whether I am prepared to deal with it. Honorable Speaker, my stand on corruption also remains unchanged. I may not be an angel, but I can tell you, Honorable Speaker, throughout my life, yes, I have fought very, very seriously against corruption in all its manifestations. Honorable Speaker, there are two problems with the matter of the IPPs from where I sit. And I want to explain a little bit. First and foremost, our energy sector has undergone or is supposed to be undergoing what we call unbundling. Unlike many other jurisdictions which have got a vertical integration kind of structure, our sector has been unbundled, and therefore we have got agencies or entities that do the drilling of the wells if it comes to geothermal. There are entities that do the generation of power itself, entities that transmit, ultimately entities that distribute to the consumers. Honorable Speaker, we have these IPPs largely at the generation level, where they compete with state entities such as KenGen and to some extent even GDC. And I'll come to that later again. Honorable Speaker, when it comes to the point of generation, I have noticed a problem that I will have to tackle head on. One, you know that in our mix of energy sources, geothermal is one of the clean energy sources and the cheapest. In fact, Honorable Speaker, Kenya is lucky. It is the 6th largest source of geothermal and in the world. In the world, Honorable Speaker. We are lucky because if you had a look at a satellite image or picture of the Earth, we fall within what you call the ring of fire. Those are areas where we have got geothermal resources worldwide. Kenya happens to be within that region. And therefore, we are blessed as a country to have geothermal resources that could help our energy be among the cheapest, Honorable Speaker. But what do you see? GDC, which is supposed to do what we call de-risking, yes, because not every private player can do the drilling of the wells. So GDC is supported by taxpayers' money to do the drilling and therefore allow the sites to be commercially utilized by other players, including KenGen. But now you find that GDC has dug the wells. They have identified, they have got the sites which are ready for development commercially. And you find that licenses for a number of those sites have been given to private entities, these so-called IPPs, a number of whom are not utilizing the sites. They have kept them for purposes of speculation. And therefore starving Kenyan, which has got excess capacity of opportunities to generate more power, or geothermal power for that matter. Okay? So the country is losing on that account alone. Persons who have been given licenses, what we call geothermal concessions, and they are holding those licenses, which are public assets in my view, whilst Kenyan, which is a publicly owned entity, at least 70%, has the capacity, the expertise, the resources, is not able to get access to those sites to be able to generate for us energy. So that I will have to deal with. But I will have to deal with them by way of first engaging with the Attorney General to see what we can do about these licenses that are remaining idle without necessarily exposing the country, of course, okay, to litigation and the likes. But eventually to see to it that in the new dispensation, if such licenses are to be issued, there must be conditions. That you get a license, but you have got certain terms within which to play. That is one. Two, it is this animal that we call take or pay. These are IPPs which have been given, which have signed PPAs, the power producing agreements, with Kenya Power and Lighting Company. And the agreement is such that whatever they generate, you either take it, or if you don't take it, you still pay for it. So really, that is not sustainable. And they are very, very, very long-term agreements. Some running to as long as 20 years. Again, I will have to engage the Office of the Attorney General on how to deal with this. But eventually, of course, I'm aware that there is currently a moratorium on the engagement of IPPs following the Presidential Task Force on PPAs that was established earlier in 2021. Even if that moratorium is lifted eventually, we shall have to ensure that whatever PPAs we get into do not put us in that or in such a situation. As a matter of fact, my view is that eventually, because currently we have a very robust legal framework, since the enactment of the Energy Act of 2019, one of my first duties within 100 days, if I am lucky to be approved, would be to ensure that the requisite regulations are brought to fruition, because there are different stages of processing, so that the country can benefit fully, can reap the full potential from this robust legislative framework. But then, if it comes to that, I foresee a situation where this country will not need this kind of lopsided agreements. We may actually want to have an energy auction kind of situation, where you generate your energy, take it to the auction floor, as it were, and then we buy when we need it as consumers, through KPLC, of course. Okay? That is a futuristic view, my Honorable Speaker. Let me quickly go to the next question, because I'm trying to be, okay. Yes, I understand Honorable Jeanette's view that the executive is not like Parliament. I'm here to experience that because, Honorable Speaker, you know, I have never worked in the executive throughout my life.
You will get to learn.
Yes, so I will get to learn. And I'm a first learner, I believe, Honorable Speaker. So I don't have any qualms that I will be able to fit in fairly well. Honorable Speaker, the immediate issues, which are of concern to nearly all members of the National Assembly, I being one of them, at least for now. The issue of rural electrification, the issue of last mile. Honorable Speaker, I said from the outset that our energy sector is supposed to have been unbundled. But I must add that that unbundling is not yet complete. Why do I say so? You still find Kenya Power and Lighting Company competing with REREC in last mile connections. Honorable Speaker, Kenya Power and Lighting Company is a publicly listed company. It's supposed to be running commercially. It's supposed to be profit motivated, if you ask me. And therefore, it cannot be able to do what NEREC was envisaged to do. That is to extend power.
Nominee.
Yes.
I want to guide you.
Yes.
You have been nominated to be the CS Energy and Petroleum. Instead of pontificating on what they are, tell us, if you are confirmed, what do you want to do with them? That will be your vision, and that will be your message to the country. Because when you engage in a complaining type of narrative, it doesn't give hope to the country.
Let me endeavor to give hope now to the country. Honorable Speaker, therefore in...
Mr. Speaker, Mr.
Yes.
Speaker, the nominee is trying to shed off the opposition leadership slowly. So
he said
doing what the energy called load shedding. He's shedding.
He said he's a very fast learner. So now he's learned already.
Thank you for the
Yes.
guidance, Honorable Speaker.
Yes.
Let me say this. Really,
Even those parastatals you're talking about, they are going to be under your watch.
Okay,
So
let me
you
say
tell
this.
us what you want them to be.
As a policy direction,
Yes.
I would endeavor, first and foremost, to separate or to reduce the overlap, okay, in the functions of KPLC and REREC, okay? And to empower REREC fully to be able to undertake the mandate of last mile connections, okay? So that KPLC can concentrate, can focus on its commercial function, business. Is that better, Honorable Speaker?
You are trying.
Okay.
Yes.
Finally, Honorable Speaker, on Honorable Janet's question, it is indeed true that we have got fairly dilapidated infrastructure, especially for transmission. Again, you must also understand that these are legacy problems. Before the coming into being of KETRACO, it was the sole duty or mandate of KPLC to do the whole business from generation to distribution. Some of this infrastructure was inherited, and some improvements have been done, but there's still room for further improvement, especially if we have to take electricity, optimally to those who need it. Honorable Speaker, we have situations where we are not able to evacuate power from the generators, okay, to the end user because of lack of transmission capacity. That's something I'll be working closely with the agencies in my docket to be able to fast track the modernization of the infrastructure. And especially when it comes to the last mile connectivity, we are going to work closely with REREC together with KPLC again, by way of engaging with the development partners to be able to finance this process. I'm aware, Honorable Speaker, before I conclude, that there was a proposal in the now defunct Finance Act 2024 for some money for each constituency. But as a matter of fact, 50 million shillings. In the budget, yes. In the budget, yes. Now that has been removed in the wake of the withdrawal of the Finance Bill 2024. But let me assure my colleague members and the public generally that even with that, all is not lost. We are going to work very systematically with the REREC and KPLC to engage the development partners to help us finance this function. Indeed, even as we speak, there's a project going on which is being funded by the World Bank, okay, in terms of extending powers to those areas where the national grid has not reached, what we call the off-grids. And they have been very helpful, Honorable Speaker. I must commend the management of both KPLC and REREC, because as we speak, there are islands on Lake Victoria which previously had no power. And since the national grid cannot be extended to those areas economically, they have resorted to the off-grid power production, which is really helping those areas. We want to extend this to other areas, especially the far-flung areas of northeastern, okay? Yes, to use solar power to be able to light up those areas.
Thank you.
Yes.
Naisula?
To the nominee, there has been talk about breaking Kenya Power's monopoly. I want to hear your view. This is a conversation that Kenyans have had for a very long time. Shouldn't Kenya have a choice, depending on your, the costs, the operational efficiency, and all that, whether people should be able to have a choice? The second question is that the Auditor General revealed issues related to meters, specifically the absence of check meters, malfunctioning check meters, and inconsistencies between check meters and the main meters. And that is why people get a different bill. It doesn't match. And so I wanted to ask, these are the cartels we have discussed for the last 2 days, people who don't want this country to move forward. And how do you intend to deal with these electricity cartels and address this irregularity in the metering?
Yes, Nelson, we'll take a bundle before you unbundle.
Honorable Wandayi, you are heavily opposed to the G2G deal. Now, if this House approves you, you are literally going to oversight the same G2G arrangement because it's still on progress. Has your position shifted, or will your position shift if this committee approves you?
Posing, take the third one as well.
Yeah, thank you, Speaker. Honorable Wandayi, it's a big problem in the entire Western Kenya in terms of clean power, blackouts. The entire northern Kenya, Western Kenya, that is from Nyanza, South Rift and North Rift. Should you get the favor of the House, how will you tackle that very fundamental issue that is almost historic? Number two, Honorable Wandayi, where is tallow oil in Turkana? Go and find out where that animal is. Should have actually produced oil in Kenya. Should be oil-producing country. But disappeared. There's a lot of money that has been sunk, and nothing is going on. Where is tallow oil? Thank you, Speaker.
Okay, let me endeavor to answer these three.
Very short. We can take the next Kikaria.
Wow, a mouthful.
Those are 4, and they're all very short. You should answer them with brevity, the same way they are asked.
Thank you, Speaker. Just want to follow up on what Naisula was talking about metering. This is just maybe having been in the energy sector for a while, maybe you need to consider REREC going to the point of even metering a customer, because what happens is that REREC is given the option to take that drop of a wire to a customer, but now they leave the metering to KKPLC, who never take it, and we have over like 3 years. You take 3 years before you're metered. I think it is important for you to look at the metering being done by REREC, and then REREC can be able to inform KPLC for purposes of them now starting to do the charging. But there is this question of customers make applications. Then it takes too long to a point that we encourage illegal contractors to come and put lines and transmission. And then when KPLC realizes there is that, the first thing they do is to go and bring down all the poles. Yet, and my committee then had to go to Navaholo, where they were to be paid 3.5, And they took too long only for somebody else to come in to do that. I think it is important for you to address the issues ailing KPLC, so that we don't, and KPLC is a good, by the way, in the Energy Act 2019, the Kenya KPLC is not a monopoly. By the way, anybody can apply and get a license for them to be able to do distribution of power in the country. And that is in the Act. Thank you, Honorable Chairman.
Okay, Honorable Speaker, thank you. Let me start with the Honorable Naisula. And I agree with the Honorable Gikaria. The 2019 Energy Act has actually laid the basis or foundation for other players to come in the energy distribution space. But even as this happens, because it will only happen again once we have put in place the requisite regulations, the subsidiary legislation. But even as this happens, Honorable Speaker, we still need a robust KPLC. And I'll say why. KPLC, because of the legacy, of course, issues, has got an elaborate infrastructure layout across the country. The competencies, the personnel, and so on and so forth, the technical capacity to do what it is supposed to do. In any event, KPLC actually is the revenue collector, okay? Revenue that goes all the way up the upstream, the transmitters, the generators, and so on and so forth. So we still need to ensure that a KPLC is run optimally, is efficient, is effective, even as we open that space of distribution to other players, as envisaged under the Energy Act 2019. What I foresee as doing going forward, and I will have discussions with my team if I'm approved, is that we may want to create zones, okay, for purposes of optimal utilization of these resources, so that we avoid conflicts if and when this process begins. And therefore, in short, the monopoly by KPLC is no longer entrenched in law. It is essentially a matter of practice, and we shall deal with it in the fullness of time. Two is the question of faulty meters. This I will have to inquire more about, because what I have been briefed is that we have had problems in procurement of both meters, actually of all items. Yes, but meters more so, and transformers. What has happened is that these cartels that Honorable Chunga talked about, and Honorable Koech, I think, was saying, these cartels have become so pervasive, Honorable Speaker, that they can't allow a tendering process to proceed to conclusion and awards to be made without creating roadblocks. We all know for sure that KPLC, being a publicly listed company with majority shareholding being government, is governed by the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act of 2015, which act, as we all know, Honorable Speaker and members, gives room for tenderers, yes, for bidders, to lodge complaints at every other stage. But that is being abused, Honorable Speaker, by entrenched cartels. And we shall have to work closely with my colleagues in the ministry to deal with this menace, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Koech, on the matter of G2G deal, the G2G deal, it's indeed true, Honorable Speaker, that I, alongside my other colleagues who are vehemently opposed to this scheme. But let me tell you, Honorable Speaker, that was then. And I was doing it as my duty to put government to check.
I think you already answered that question when you are responding to the Deputy Speaker.
But this is specific. So on this G2G, Honorable Speaker, I am aware that it is running up to end of 2025. That gives me ample time to go and study its impact, its workings, and understand it, and for me to be able to offer appropriate guidance, Honorable Speaker. The Honorable was saying, my chair, my good chair, the matter of power outages or inefficiencies in the Western Kenya belt. Well, but it is more pervasive in the Western Kenya. But I'll explain why.
Sometimes you can have a blackout for 12 hours.
I have already engaged officers, of course informally, in the ministry. And if I am approved, if I'm eventually appointed as CS Energy, I am going to fast track the development of transmission lines, okay, with the requisite capacity to evacuate power and take to the consumers, not only in Western Kenya, but across the country. And in Western Kenya specifically, I'm going to ensure that the Tarkwel or Tum Kitale line is completed and commissioned in the shortest time possible. That will deal with power issues in Pokot, in Kitale, in all that area. I will also ensure, similarly, that the Kibos or Kisumu, Kakamega, Musaga line is also completed. Similarly, the Narok-Bomet line has to be completed within the shortest time possible for the entire southern Nyanza region, including Kisii and Nyamira counties. And Bomet, of course, southern Nyanza includes Migori, Homa Bay, and yes, and the islands, yes, in Lake Victoria. So this is something I will actually give utmost priority, Honorable Speaker. Northern Kenya is, of course, at the heart of this strategy. As we speak, there is a line from Loyangalani to Masabit that has to be completed similarly in record time, and the line from Masabit to Isiolo, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the second limb of this question by Honorable Kosing is on the matter of tallow oil. Honorable Speaker, this project is not dead. It could have taken a break, but I've taken it upon myself, if I'm appointed, to ensure that it is revived. Because tallow oil is on the ground. What it lacks is the requisite financial capacity to be able to commercially develop the oil reserves in the lower Lokichar, in the South Lokichar basin, Honorable Speaker. We are going to work closely with tallow oil, with the guidance of the Attorney General, to source for a strategic partner who can bring in some financial capital to be able to have this project completed. But again, time is of essence, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, you know that Kenya is a signatory to the Paris Agreement on carbon emissions. Kenya is a signatory to the Paris Agreement on carbon emissions. And if you recall, the outcome of the conference, the UN conference on climate change, COP27, in Egypt in 2022, if we don't move with speed and extract this oil into Turkana, we may be time-barred because we will face serious restrictions, including even restrictions from potential financiers, because the world is moving steadily from fossil fuels to clean energy, Honorable Speaker. And Kenya is not an island. And therefore, I'm going to treat this matter of tallow oil and the oil in South Lokichar Basin with the utmost urgency. Honorable Gikaria, my good friend, the member for Nakuru East, I agree with him totally. Nothing stops CREREC from putting in place meters. They can actually do the last mile up to the point of metering. Okay? And then a framework is established for handover to KPLC for purposes of billing, Honorable Speaker. This will create synergy and enhance efficiency and contribute to customer satisfaction, Honorable Speaker. Again, the matter of applications taking too long, I have discussed. And I've been made aware of the bottlenecks that the utility companies have been facing. This, again, we shall work on. The question of illegal connections is not necessarily a matter of delayed in processing applications. The matter of illegal connections will still be there even if the applications are processed on time. And we have to deal with it separately or differently. And my proposal, and
it's a crime, you know that.
It's a crime, of course. Yes. It is a crime, but we must also live with the reality that some of these areas where this practice is rampant are not easy to access, even by the officers of Kenya Power and Lighting.
Yes.
Yes. So we are going to work on a proposal, of course, together with Parliament and the Attorney General, to pursue an option of bulk metering. Okay? In those kind of situations, the Kenya Power and Lighting can be empowered to identify one entity or one person who will then be billed, and then he distributes the power to the rest of the
law already
consumers.
Allows them to do that. Why don't they?
Yes, that's why I said from the outset, Honorable Speaker, that I will...
Anyway, you are not the minister, so
I will need to
address it when you...
fast-track the issue of the regulations, yeah.
We'll go to the next batch. We'll start with Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the nominee, you know, when Jubilee came into power in 2013, they marketed the last mile connectivity very, very well. In fact, citizens were of the opinion that they would all be connected within like a month or so. And so that has brought a lot of pressure on members of parliament, because whenever people are not connected, they have this belief that the member of parliament is seeking to only power some areas in their constituencies and not others. I would like you to, from your opinion, you know, having of course studied the situation, to tell us what will you do to ensure that this pressure is taken out of members of parliament, because members, you know, the public thinks it's our issue. Now, the other issue is an issue of public confidence, Honorable Wandayi, in that office, and considering that you have been also with us in the minority, you know, and I'm saying this because you know what Kenyans out there have said, and it will be important for you to address them from this point. What can you tell those Kenyans that believe that you took advantage of the young Kenyan demonstrators, some of whom who died while they were demonstrating, so that you could negotiate your way into government?
Owen?
Thank you very much. After that bomb from your former deputy, I want you, from your former deputy, I just want you to focus on cost of power, Honorable Wandayi.
Order, Bossing? Yeah?
Yeah, I would like to get full attention. Honorable Wandayi, the cost of power in this country is such that it is over the roof. If you get a power bill, you look at it, you know, you're paying so many things apart from, in fact, the units that you are paying for actually become a small part of what you're paying for. For this country to rise or fall in terms of manufacturing, in terms of production, the cost of living and the prices of items, it all falls and all rises on the sword of power cost, for which, in your statements, you have said this country, in Parliament, many times in Parliament, you've said that the cost of living in this country is very, very high. But one of the biggest contributors of that cost, of that high cost of living, is power. You are in the middle of it. Apart from thinking about reticulation of power, apart from thinking about all these other things, you have a big elephant in the room. How do you bring the cost of power in this country to reduce the cost of life and also to increase manufacturing, industrialization, and all those other things? Thank you, Honorable Wandayi.
Rugara?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Nominee, the ministry you are just about to take over, if this committee and the House approves you, is one of the key ministries in the country akin to roads, water, and every Kenyan is looking upon you to be connected to electricity. And there are not two options to it. Even before I ask you the question, it's good to know that there are historical injustices in terms of power supply in the country, such that, take the case of the year 2017, the Raka constituency was at 9.5% connectivity to the national grid. At the same time, Gatundu South constituency was at 100%. These are all equal Kenyans. There really should not be that disparity. Number two, we have schools. Schools where electricity is just but mandatory. Yet, those areas are not connected to the national grid, and the children are supposed to compete competitively in national exams, which are standard. My question to you is, would you be subscribing to a form of affirmative action in terms of electricity supply to constituencies which have lagged behind? And it's just not to Tharaka. You go to Mwingi North, you go to Mbalambala, which is also my neighbor, Bere North, Bere South. These actually have been discriminated against. And therefore, would you be prepared to take affirmative action in respect of those constituencies?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To Honorable Opiyo Wandayi, the nominee. My colleagues have talked about electricity. You have talked about the transformers. Do you see we need to move away from oil-based transformers, because every other day you will hear people removing the oil from the transformers, and we have got transformers which do not work sometimes, or we have got a shortage of transformers. So do you see, will you do research? Because I've done, if you go to the Western world, you do not see any transformer, and I know you've been there. So you do not see transformers there. Do you think we can have KPLC having a company where it will be having fiber optic? I know they are doing it right now, but because of the ICT of this government, to deliver fiber optic to each and every place, because it's a vast network, as you have spoken about it. The last one is about the Kenya Pipeline Refinery. Your predecessor, if you are confirmed, who was here, Davis Chirchir, he said they were looking at it once the oil, which Honorable Posing has talked about, the Tullow oil and all that, once it's done. But I believe if that refinery was there, we could even get cheaper fuel and refine it the way it used to be. So do you think it is possible under your watch if you are confirmed? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorables.
You can answer those.
Honorable Speaker. Yes, indeed it is true. That is, with respect to Honorable Mbui's question, that members of parliament are facing serious pressure from the public on the matter of last mile connectivity in their respective constituencies. Because again, it has been taken for granted that this is the work of the MPs, okay? Which they have been doing, of course, very diligently in collaboration with the REREC. Honorable Speaker, what we need to do, in my view, is to properly resource REREC. Properly resource REREC as we work on the efficiencies for this rural electrification to be fast-tracked. As we speak, the data I have is that we are at about 76% penetration. That, of course, is theoretical. Because, you know, in some areas, it's as low as 10%, while in others, it is over 100%. Yes. So I'm very much alive to that fact. In fact, we need also to bring on board counties, county governments. Honorable Speaker, under Schedule 4 of the Constitution, the counties have got a role also in energy, also in street lights. Okay? What has happened in the past is that REREC has been able to build street lights, which street lights go off soon after they are commissioned for lack of payment of bills and maintenance, which they presume is the mandate of the counties, Honorable Speaker. So my view, this state of affairs is not tenable. We must make a decision, and I'll be coming back to Parliament. Okay? We must make a decision as to whether to empower REREC fully, to be able to be in charge of this street lighting, up to including payment of bills. But more importantly, if we can now move away from the grid, national grid, and establish solar street lights, okay, which would be easy to manage in the long term. That's a discussion we must have urgently, because these are important facilities. Honorable Speaker, on the matter of public confidence, as raised by Honorable Mbui, you know, Honorable Speaker, I am very clear in my mind, extremely clear, because I've been on this space for quite some time. The Gen Zs, or the youth, were not raising any different issues from the issues you and I, Honorable Mbui, have raised over the years. They could have had a different style, okay? But the issues they were raising were pertinent issues, which you all agree must be dealt with, okay? And therefore, it is not proper to say that we have taken advantage of the Gen Z's clamor to get into government. First and foremost, Honorable Speaker, I never applied to join the executive, but I was pleasantly surprised and felt greatly honored that my name was recommended. And His Excellency the President went ahead to nominate me.
You know the facts. Just answer the questions.
So, Honorable Speaker, I still maintain the view that we are not in any way in betrayal of the cause.
Don't allow Mbui to bully you.
Of the youth, yes.
And have no apologies.
Yes. But again, Honorable Speaker, as I conclude on that one, you know, we are basically coming on board in a paradigm shift. I'm very pleased that the President has actually declared that we have to adopt a paradigm shift in the management of government and state affairs. And I'm most privileged if I'm approved.
In our country.
In our country.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. We are living in different times. Yes, so we must also think differently. Sorry. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Baya, you are right. The cost of power is exorbitant in Kenya. Even if you compare ourselves to our neighboring countries, especially Ethiopia and even Uganda, really. But part of the reason why our cost of power is too high, is the exorbitant amount of commercial and technical losses that Kenya Power, especially in cars. Kenya Power loses up to 23% of the power it buys from the generators. Okay? In other words, it doesn't sell. Almost 23% of the power it buys from the generators.
Inefficiency and recklessness.
Yes, there are many factors.
You must assure the country that this will stop.
This is going to be managed. I can't say it will stop, Honorable Speaker, because in any scientific process, there can be losses. But they have to be reasonable losses, Honorable Speaker. Yes. So we are going to work closely with the KPLC, and I'm happy, Honorable Speaker, by the work the KPLC management is doing currently. As a matter of fact, I'm privy to the information that they have done some turnaround. I'm not allowed by the rules of the CMA to get into details. But they have done some turnaround, and they may post some.
You have received. You'll get a plan.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'm just being optimistic. Yes. And giving the country hope to borrow your words.
Yes. Okay. Continue.
Speaker, let me dash to the question, by Honorable Dawood. Murugara.
Murugara first.
Murugara, yes. Honorable Speaker, it is true, there have been historical injustices. Okay? And we must work together in terms of addressing these injustices or these imbalances. We must correct them. That's systematically. But I must also throw a challenge to my colleagues in the National Assembly, because I'm aware that this lopsided allocation of resources, especially on energy and electricity, is also coming from us in Parliament at the budget time. The agencies, the ministries, are receiving printed estimates with figures which they cannot change, they can't touch, which figures are scary, Honorable Speaker. You find one constituency being allocated upwards of 400 million Kenya shillings, while another one is getting a paltry 10 million Kenya shillings in the same financial year. So we must also actually do some introspection as a House to help us in the ministry, if and when I am approved, to deal with this issue. You know, once you bring printed estimates, the ministry, the agencies have got no leg room. They have no room to maneuver. Okay? So these imbalances, these injustices, there is also the issue of solars for schools. There is currently a very robust project being undertaken by Red Solar for schools. We want to follow through this project to ensure that at least every school in this country is able to benefit.
Point of order. No. Point of order.
George?
Point of order. Solar has been tried from time immemorial. It works only for 1 month, 2 months, it just dies. And those schools will remain in the books of KBLC or whoever that they are connected through solar when actually it is not working. So it doesn't make sense whatsoever for Kenya Power or for RELEC to introduce or to go back to that solar business. Let us get connection to the national grid so that we also assured of constant electricity supply.
Point of order, Chairman, on the same.
Yes.
And you know, this was done mostly from the regions I come from. It is so that if you do electricity, the households around the school also are connected to power. But now if you give us solars, you're just giving to the schools, they're vandalized, they're not working, and you continue to marginalize us on issues to do with electricity. We don't want the solars.
Point of order, Speaker. Point of order.
And it is vendor-driven, the solars.
Yeah, point of order, Chair. I just want to urge my colleagues that, you know, the nominee is actually a nominee. And we are addressing the nominee like the CS for energy, a decision
Which
we are yet
is
to
not.
make. Because the pressure is on him now dealing with solar versus, you know, regular energy. So.
No, it's important for him to know.
Probabilities. We are working on the probabilities.
You are being warned of landmines ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I've taken note. Yeah. I've taken note, Honorable Speaker. Let me just proceed quickly to Honorable Dawood. Yes, I've gotten your point on the possibility of moving from oil-based transformers to something else. I need to check with the technical people to be able to give some feedback on that. Honorable Speaker, there's an issue raised, the Honorable Dawood raised, on the Kenya oil refinery. Did you mean refinery or the Kenya pipeline?
Oil refinery with the pipeline.
Yes. You know, I am aware that the Kenya oil refinery has or is in the process of being acquired by the Kenya Pipeline Company. I will need to get into the details as to the rationale behind this. But I still foresee a very big role for the Kenya oil refinery, at least its installation. Firstly, in terms of the processing of the crude oil, if and when it finally flows from the south of Kichar, yes, to Mombasa, But more importantly, Honorable Speaker, I have come to the realization that this country does not have provision for a strategic reserve of oil. That we can actually one of these days wake up and find that we can't bring oil to Mombasa. And then after some few days or weeks, we are ground to a halt as a country. So I think this facility in Mombasa can still be useful in future once we work on the strategic oil for the country that can last for at least 90 days. That's the best practice universally, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
You have not answered if KPLC can do the fiber accompany. Would it be possible or not?
I will also pursue this. Yes.
Mary Emase.
Thank you. Nominee, you've talked about customer satisfaction. I put it to you that KPLC customers are the most dissatisfied. And I want to believe that there are serious management challenges to do with the leadership of KPLC. Why do I say that? A simple task, but of urgent nature, like restoring a falling post or a collapsing post, goes a time bomb. It can collapse any time, it's posing danger, and in certain instances it has occasioned deaths. It will take forever before it is restored. Actually, there is one about to fall onto my house. You will call the so-called regional directors. There is no response. Secondly, restoring power when there are those frequent outages. A transformer has failed or has busted, and some of them are in learning institutions in our regions. It is adversely affecting learning. In my constituency, some of them have taken more than 6 months, and it's not only in my constituency, it cuts across the country. If you are actually approved, you tell us what you're going to do about some of these management issues. Meter acquisition, you have applied for meters. And I'm told even these meters are already being adulterated by the cartels in the industry. You will wait forever. Kenyans have to bribe to get meters. Now, knowing the Wandayi that we know, I want to believe you're going to fight corruption in the energy sector. Sometimes, villagers have had to come together in there's a chama for power, so that they put money together to procure an independent electrician to restore power. This is the Kenya we are living in, Honorable Wandayi. And finally, you've talked about
key transmission lines that are yet to be constructed, and with the shrinking revenue and reduced headroom to borrow, what are you going to do to ensure that they are done, since the country needs them?
Honorable Mishimbo.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Chairman. Honorable Chairman, my first question is on environmental concerns. And I'm talking about the proposed Lamu coal power plant. I know there have been some opposition from environmental groups concerned about the impact on the local ecosystem. So my question is, how will you balance energy needs with environmental protection? My second question, it is on the issue of the project dubbed the Lake Turkana Wind Power Project. I know you were once the chair of PAC, and I was also in the committee of PAC, and this matter kept on coming and coming each and every time. This project was at a tune of 70 billion, and so many billions had been already utilized. So I just want to ask you, do you see that the taxpayers' money had some value to where we are right now in regards to that Lake Turkana wind? I know you are not yet the Minister for that energy. Maybe you're going to be approved. I want you to check on this, because a lot of money have really been utilized, and yet we don't see any tangible results from that. My last question, it is in reference on what happened in Embakasi on the 2nd of February, where there was the explosion, and so many Kenyans were killed and some were injured. Again, there was an explosion by the petroleum tanker in Sashangwani about 11 years back, the other one at Molo. So my concern is, what safe standard measures are you going to put in place to ensure that we save Kenyans from such fatal accidents and any other times? I thank you, Honorable Chairman.
Sharia.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mheshimiwa Wandayi. And as my colleague Murugada said, Balambala is connected to the national grid. And when we have power outages, you can imagine in my constituency, just to repair some lines took 7 months, and the people of Balambala were in the dark for 7 months. I appreciate KPLC. I've been trying to call them to fix, which finally they said they will this week. Kindly, can you, if approved, could you look into the turnaround or how fast they can attend to faults within the line? Because you can imagine a whole constituency which produces almost 54 megawatts and adds it to the national grid through solar, being in the dark for 7 months. How will I explain that to my constituents? So kindly look into that. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
It doesn't require kindness, it requires responsibility.
You know, he was my leader, so sometimes I have to treat him with the same respect that I did when he was my leader.
It requires responsibility. Nominee, can you answer those?
Okay, thank you. I'll try to be brief. And again, Honorable Massey is spot on. Yeah, the matter of customer satisfaction is known to all of us in terms of services by KPLC. What I think, without really going into details, because I'm here to assume the office. Honorable Speaker, what I think KPLC requires, and it's a giant company, actually employing over 10,000 people. What I think KPLC requires is an urgent, what we call business process reengineering, to look at the totality, okay, of the architecture of the management of KPLC processes and functions. Honorable Speaker. 2 is the question of transmission lines that are yet to be completed. Honorable Speaker, some of the lines, actually nearly all of the lines that I mentioned earlier on, that I will try to fast track their completion, have got funding. Okay? They have got funding as we speak. And most of the funding coming from development partners. So my work will be to work closely with the agencies responsible to have these projects completed within the timelines that are stipulated. The Honorable Mukami, again, is basically speaks to the question that has been raised by Honorable Massey. Yes. And I will work closely with you if I get the honor of being approved, yeah, to see to it that this is done, the matter of completion of these transmission lines. Honorable Mishi, yes. The question of carbon emissions is very serious. But again, we shall have to work closely with all stakeholders to strike a balance between energy needs of the country and environmental protection. That delicate balance will have to be struck, Honorable Speaker. Yes.
Just on the same.
Yes.
If you allow me, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to allow myself. Thank you. I would like to ask you a question on nuclear energy. You know, there's a proposal in my...
It's not the same.
No,
He
it's...
was answering a question on coal.
That is called, this is nuclear.
How can it be the same?
It's different.
Yes. Let him finish answering those questions, then I'll give you...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Speaker, Lake Turkana wind project. Honorable Speaker, for sure, this is a matter again of public notoriety. I kept hearing about it when I was in the last parliament, I think. Yeah, it was within the purview of the Committee on Energy and PIC then. I'm aware, despite all the issues that were raised then and even now, that eventually the power is being generated. Okay? As a matter of fact, Honorable Speaker, in our total installed, out of our total installed energy capacity, which is about 3,200 megawatts, the wind power is accounting for about 460 megawatts or so, the bulk of which is from this Lake Turkana wind. So I will take time once I assume, if and when I assume office, to establish more details surrounding this project, yes, and to draw lessons from it that could inform our future engagement with similar projects. Yeah. Yeah, Honorable Speaker, yes, again, the issue of gas explosion in Bakassi, Sachangwan, and so on and so forth. It's a question of regulation. It's a question of regulation. I will be working closely with EPRA and enforcement of the law. Yes, I'll work closely with EPRA to see to it that these occurrences are a thing of the past. In fact, Honorable Speaker, one of the areas I'll be focusing on, if I get to be appointed, is to push the LPG uptake by the public in terms of cooking, okay? From the current about 40% to 100% by 2028, actually, 2028. That should be the target, Honorable Speaker. And we are going to work closely with all the relevant players to ensure that we make it possible for the Kenyan people in the countryside and everywhere else to access gas, clean energy for cooking. Because we can no longer continue in the manner we are continuing of using charcoal, using firewood. It's not sustainable, Honorable Speaker. Yeah. And therefore, if for this to happen, we must put in place a proper enforcement mechanism to forestall such unfortunate occurrences that have happened in the past. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Shurie of Mbalambala, again, the same issue of response by KPLC that was raised by Honorable Emasi. But I'm also happy that the solar plant in Garissa is really contributing immensely to the national grid. Currently, solar energy is accounting for about 220 megawatts of our total installed capacity, the bulk of which is coming from Garissa, and Mbalambala to be specific. I'm also happy, Honorable Speaker, to notify honorable members that there's also a line which I need to fast track, a transmission line from Garsen to Garissa, that if completed will also help in connecting the populace around that area to the national grid. Honorable Baya, if you allow me, I just finish with him. Yes. Honorable Baya's question on nuclear energy.
He did not finish asking. Now you can ask.
I would like to say this, yes, we must generate electricity through other means, including safe energy like nuclear. There is a proposal to set up a nuclear plant in a place called Uyombo in Kilifi North constituency. And this has elicited a lot of reactions. It's not just about environment, it's just about human beings and preparedness of this country in venturing into nuclear energy and nuclear waste and all that whole realm about nuclear. But the people of Uyombo have said no, they have refused. And looking at many factors, and they have a right, they've been forced, they've been beaten, many things have happened to force them into this nuclear. Would you stand with the people of Uyombo and actually agree with them and look for other sources of energy other than nuclear?
Honorable Speaker, let me just take some 2 minutes to explain something. First and foremost, Kenya is a member state of the International Atomic Energy Agency that regulates matters nuclear across the world. And Kenya has adopted the International Atomic Agency's milestone approach in terms of establishing a nuclear energy plant. In this approach, there are phases that we have to go through. I am informed that the first phase, which involves public participation, among other things, has been undertaken. But more importantly, Honorable Speaker, we have even gone further and identified a site, an alternative site, as is required under the framework of the IEA. And the site, Honorable Speaker, is in Kwale County. The alternate site is in Kilifi County. The alternate site is in Kwale County, Honorable Speaker. What I want to assure honorable members, even though I haven't assumed the office, is that once I assume the office, if I do so, I will revisit the matter. Not as a way of stopping it, but as a way of encouraging more holistic involvement of all stakeholders as we move forward. Because this country, Honorable Speaker, my view, that is my personal view now, needs nuclear energy.
It is not only clean, but very cheap.
Correct. It will only rival geothermal energy in terms of contributing to our base load, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Russell.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Wandayi, I think for your information, Lake Turkana Wind Power evacuates 360 megawatts to the national grid. But Marsabit, the main town in the area, is on power, on diesel generators. That is the inequality that is there. So my question is, in Vision 2030, we as a country project to be a middle-income country and industrialized. But that cannot happen without having power, because 3.3, gigawatts is not enough power to seriously run industries. And there are also many interests in the power sector, cartels, big corporations who have interest. There are many who have preceded you. I really want to hear from you, what is it different that you are likely to do? Honorable Mbuya said something, Juneta said something, and you come from some other corner. Maybe you bring a new type of thinking to all this. Maybe you will share with us. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Honorable Wandayi, the nominee, I want to look at Kenyans and to tell them what new formula are you going to bring to the energy sector to see the pump of oil in the petrol station go down and to see the purchase of electricity in this country goes down by at least 30%. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to follow up where Honorable Imase left, Mary. Billing of Kenya Power, if you do get through, if there is wrong billing, you have to pay before you even complain. It's like KRA. So if you do go in, would you probably talk to them and, if there's a dispute, of course you don't pay the whole thing. Thank you.
Honorable Speaker, beginning with the Honorable Russell's question, yes, it's indeed true that the Turkana power, wind power, the energy from it is not going to Marsabit. Okay? And of course, this is a factor of transmission, Honorable Speaker, which I said earlier on, yes. And in fact, there are now plans to take it down to Mombasa. Yes, to Mariakani. Yeah. So I think we still have to look at our transmission network and see how cost-effectively we can re-engineer it to serve the country better. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Russell has spoken about a very serious issue here. Kenya, of course, aspires to be a middle-income economy. This is according to the country's Vision 2030, which is in line with the East Africa community's vision 2030 also. Yeah. Honorable Speaker, there is no way we are going to industrialize and therefore grow the economy without an assured supply of clean, reliable power or energy. I was just looking at some statistics, Honorable Speaker. A state like California in the US, which is the same landmass as Kenya, has got an installed capacity of 60,000 megawatts. The peak requirement, I'm told, is about 40,000 megawatts. Kenya has got an installed capacity of 3,200 megawatts with a peak requirement of 2,200 megawatts. So we are playing in different leagues, and yet we want to grow through industrialization. My take is that we must increase our installed capacity based on clean energy sources. Geothermal, of course, hydro, even if it is not very reliable, because sometimes we get prolonged drought. But we must continue to increase this. And that's why I'll be very keen in ensuring how licensing for these geothermal sites is done going forward. We have to give the KenGen the capacity, the mandate to generate more power, okay, which then will attract investors. Because once we have got enough power, Honorable Speaker, people will come and establish industries. There's a school of thought that has it that first of all we establish the industrial parks, then power will. I don't think we have to find a balance, Honorable Speaker. The fact of the matter is that we need cheap power or energy for us to attract investments and for the economy to grow eventually. Honorable Mule, the pump price of fuel, we must understand, is not just a simple matter. What contributes to eventual pump price of fuel, I think, are threefold. One is the landed cost. Landed cost at Mombasa, of course, will vary from time to time based on other factors globally, including the war in Ukraine. Now, the other day you saw the Hamas leader was killed. It creates shocks in the oil market. Correct. All those factors will contribute to the landed price, landed cost at Mombasa. That's one factor. And we have no control over that as a country. The second factor is taxes and levies, which to a large extent is determined by the House, the National Assembly and the Senate, I believe. So I'll be working closely with you if I get appointed to address that. But the third factor, Honorable Speaker, which we as a ministry may have more control over, is the question of storage and transportation of fuel, the logistics. And on this score, I will be working closely with the Kenya Pipeline Company to enhance efficiencies. I'm happy to note that there are opportunities for the Kenya Pipeline Company to extend its pipeline, which is currently about 1,340 kilometers, from Mombasa to Kisumu and Eldoret. There are opportunities to extend that pipeline to Kampala and eventually to Kigali, and possibly to DRC, Honorable Speaker. If and when we do that, then KPLC will be able to generate more revenues, okay, and reduce its costs, operational cost, which of course goes into the pump price, you know. Honorable Speaker, you know, you are aware that Uganda has, since this month, I think, started importing its fuel directly. But even still, it's using our pipeline, okay? Which is a benefit to us. We're not losing anything, really. Previously, we would...
The pipeline world over is a highway.
Correct.
Yes.
And they're paying us. Previously, out of the 100% imported fuel or petroleum products, Uganda would take 20%. But now that 20%, it is importing directly, but still passing through our pipeline. How I wish the extended pipeline to Kampala and DRC could be owned by Kenya, Honorable Speaker, if it's possible. Because pipeline makes money in two ways. One, by the volume that goes through it. Two, by the distance that volume travels. So I think we have got serious opportunities to make Kenya Pipeline Company more competitive, even now it is posting fairly good profit.
Pipelines all over the world are not constructed with domestic resources. They're so lucrative that any lender will give you money. So it's up to you to go and organize.
Thank you. I think it's finished, basically. Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to look at why they are billing you incorrectly, Honorable Dawood and other. Okay, another consumers here.
Nominee, let me ask you a question or two. Kenya Power is a monopoly. In fact, the biggest monopoly in this country. And yet we keep on seeing stories that it is technically insolvent or has serious financial difficulties. If you find favor and become the CS, what are you going to do to ensure that this monopoly that has a stranglehold over every sector of life in Kenya, that collects money from everybody, some up front with prepaid meters, becomes profitable and pays a dividend to the treasury? Because it is a state company. Number two, and this follows what Rahim was saying, there is a lot of erratic billing by Kenya Power. Yours truly here has been a regular victim. They give you one bill of 28,000 in 1 month, the next month they give you 89,000. And it's the same consumption in the house. There is one time they gave me a bill, nominee, of 550,000 for a month. And they came and disconnected my power from the pole. And they're the only supplier, so you have to pay. What are you going to do about this? Then you had Mbalambala MP. A breakdown has taken 7 months without fixing. Will you consider, if you are confirmed, to sit with KPLC and give them strict timelines and schedules within which to respond to public needs? If there's a breakdown, it should not take more than a day, time allowing or not allowing 2 days, but 7 months is unacceptable. If you are confirmed, we are giving, and the government has done very well for the last over 10 years. Schools have been connected with power in many parts of the country. But if you go to these schools, if you turn up as an MP, the first thing you are told is, we have not paid our electricity bill. Please help us to pay. Would you consider having an arrangement where schools and public institutions are charged subsidized rates so that they do not pay commercial rates like industries, factories, and other households? So that in some schools you go, there is power connection, but the only thing it's used is teachers charging their phones, nothing else. They cannot afford to use it for anything else. So if you can consider that. Lastly, if you are confirmed, I was the first electricity regulator in this country. You remember? At that time, when we carried out a study, there was in the Southern Africa countries called the Southern Power Pool, where Zambia, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Botswana, Lesotho, Swazi were all interconnected. So if there was a shortage of power in Zambia, it automatically flows in from the connection in the pool and vice versa. Would you consider working with your counterparts in the region to create a power pool for the East African countries, including Ethiopia that now has enormous capacity after the Renaissance Dam, so that we can, in times of straits like droughts, it automatically flows into Kenya, there is metering, and we pay for it.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I will answer them in the reverse. And I agree with you. We have no option but join in the East Africa Power Pool. First, as a way of creating for our actors additional market. So that if we do what we are promising to do of increasing our installed capacity, then excess energy can find an outlet, Honorable Speaker. And in the converse, if we are short of energy for whatever reason, we can get energy from the neighboring countries within the pool easily into our national grid, Honorable Speaker. There are no two ways about it. The issue of possible subsidy for schools is a great idea in my view, Honorable Speaker, and it's an issue I may have to pursue and see to what extent it can be actualized. If and when we adopt it, it looks very revolutionary because the schools are actually suffering a great deal in terms of struggling to pay these bills. And the issue of erratic billing by KPLC, which was clearly indicated earlier on by Honorable Dawood. The issue of KPLC profitability, despite being a monopoly. Honorable Speaker, I said from the outset that in my view, based on what I've seen on the desk, my desktop analysis, the KPLC would require nothing short of a business process reengineering. But then, if and when I get appointed eventually, I will have to have a sitting with the KPLC management and other players to dig deeply into the matter of KPLC, so that when eventually we prescribe solutions, the solutions that will have long-lasting impact for the benefit of the people of Kenya, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
I've sent a few questions. Some have been put to you and you have answered. Will you end KPLC monopoly? That I've just asked you. And corruption in the petroleum industry, what will you do about it? When you will revamp oil drilling in northern Kenya? I think this you have all answered. Another one says KPLC sacked 40 staff in Mombasa in 2020. When they appealed, the managers who had sacked them sat on the appeal and summarily dismissed it. Will you intervene if you are confirmed? Then other one, yes, Maya? The other one is, what strategies do you plan to implement to reduce or eliminate power outages and improve the reliability of electricity supply across the country? This you have answered. Can you outline specific measures to enhance the efficiency and capacity of the national grid? You have answered. Illegal power connections not only result in significant revenue losses, but also pose serious safety risks. What steps will you take to curb illegal power connections and ensure that all consumers are legally and safely connected to the electricity grid? How will you collaborate with law enforcement and other relevant agencies to address this issue comprehensively? I think you have also touched on that. And finally, it's to also indicate to you, nominee, that in comparable jurisdictions like Philippines, power losses amount to just about 5 to 6%. And here you talked of what, 40%? 23%. It's unacceptable. Owen?
Yeah, I have a question here from one of the people watching. It says, hello, Mheshimiwa, my name is Kibor, an employee of KPLC and a skilled contract. Can you ask Honorable Opiyo why we've stayed almost 5 years under contract, yet they bring unskilled employees instead of hiring us? And he says, we have 892 skilled fundis who are under contract in KPLC, and they have refused to hire.
You are not a minister. You will not answer that. And you are not solving industrial problems in KPLC. Yes, you are being vetted. Yes. Honorable members, we'll now, yes, Mary? From? No. You have? Go ahead. One only.
Sorry. One is from a Kenyan who is complimenting you and saying if you open the refinery, they'll have opportunity for internship as students. The other one is asking, how long does it take to compensate a Kenyan whose house was burnt in 2022 through a transformer fault? So if you get to office, how long will you take to compensate such Kenyans?
Honorable Speaker, I think if I am lucky to be appointed, I will take up these issues with the relevant persons in KPLC here.
Yes, nominee, can you answer the following questions? Have you been adversely mentioned in any integrity-related report?
Not at all. Not at all. Yeah.
Do you hold any leadership position in any political party within Kenya?
No, I'd resigned last week from both ODM and Azimio La Umoja coalition party.
What is your net worth?
My net worth is about 530 million Kenya shillings.
530. Made of?
Well, it's largely cash, a little bit of cash, real estate, a lot of interest in real estate, developed, and also farms. I have farms all over, Honorable Speaker, in Siaya. In Siaya.
You've been buying out your neighbors?
Not really. I also have a farm in Narok, Honorable Speaker. I've got some plots in Kitengela.
Yes.
In Migori, yes. In Honorable Junior's constituency.
In Bungoma?
Bungoma, no. I have got some residential houses in Migori.
Yes.
Yeah, in Nairobi here, on Kangundo Road.
Yes. That is unsolicited information. Nominee, unless you are otherwise lawfully held, we received how many? 13 memoranda on you. You responded to all of them satisfactorily. Your documents have been checked with what we have, and they have been found to be in order. You are therefore released to go about your duties. You know, you are a member of this committee. Ordinarily, you are a member of this committee.
Yes, I know, Honorable Speaker.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You are not allowed to participate in any of the proceedings in this regard.
Most obliged.
Thank you. Actually, we have not discharged him from the committee.
Once he leaves Parliament.
Yes, once you...
You need to discharge him now.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. And I want to thank you for the manner in which you have conducted this process up to now. And can only look forward to your favorable consideration when you retreat to do your report, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Wandayi. I'm delighted that for a change, you can plead.